Hey guys, welcome to the next part of matrices. Today we'll be looking at the applications of matrices, which covers two exercises, 5F and 5G. Today's lesson will mostly be done using examples with very little written notes. The reason for this is because applications doesn't necessarily cover any new skills. It's just taking previous skills learnt throughout this topic so far and applying them to contextual problems. So actually giving meaning to the questions that we're doing and putting them into a different context. All right, so we'll look at general applications first. So copy the notes as we go through. So as I said, applying matrices takes previously learnt skills and applies them to a variety of contexts. For example, we'll still be using our skills such as multiplying, adding, and subtracting, but now the elements or the numbers, they'll have meaning behind them. Make sure to pause the video as we go through and write down the notes so you don't fall behind. So we'll start with our first example. Fatima and Gaia have a sales promotion. 1 free cinema ticket is given with each DVD purchase. 2 cinema tickets are given with the purchase of a computer game. Matrix S shows the number of DVDs and games sold by each person. Matrix P shows the selling price of a DVD and a game and the number of free tickets given. So if you look at the Matrix P, you've got DVDs worth $20 and games worth $30. You buy one, you get a free ticket for a DVD and 2 free tickets for games. So first thing, the question says calculate S times P and interpret its meaning. All right, so first thing is what we need to do is to take matrix S and multiply it by matrix P. So that's done with our normal matrix multiplication using the method of running and diving. So here we've set up our equation, first matrix multiplied by the second. If we do our full working out, we run across the first column, against the row and dive down the first column. So ran across this row, dive down this column. So 7 times 20 and 4 times 30. For the second element, do the second column. So 7 times 1, 4 times 2. And then repeat the process again for the second row in the first matrix. 5 times 20, 6 times 30, 5 times 1, 6 times 2. Calculate that, you'll come up with this. So this is where I guess the applications change. Here we have an answer. We need to actually interpret what this answer is telling us about this problem. So in the first column, we got 260, 280. So those were the dollars. So basically what that's telling us is that Fatima had a sale of $260. Gaia had sales of $280. And then the total here, 15 and 17, that represents the number of tickets that were given out. So 15 by Fatima, 17 by Gaia. So here, as I said before, we're taking the exact same skills of multiplying and adding and subtracting, but we're interpreting what the answers actually tell us about the problem. Make sure you get that written down before you move on. All right, so here we have a second example. This time we're using rows and column matrices. So these can be used quite effectively to extract information from data stored within matrices. So the example we've been given here is 3 rangers completed their monthly park surveys of feral animal sightings in the matrix S. So here you've got 3 different rangers, Aaron, Barra, and Chloe, and the different feral animals that they spotted throughout their day, or their month, sorry. We've also been given A and B, A being a row matrix, B being a column matrix. All right, so question A says evaluate S times B. All right, so if we were to write it out, it'll look like this, where we have given matrix S and we're multiplying it by matrix B. If we solve that, it comes out to this. So essentially, if you're multiplying by a column matrix here with all ones, all that we're really doing is we are adding the elements together in each row, which gives us this. So we've been given a 3 by 1 matrix, which has the elements 129, 132, and 116. So that's for answer A. B, what information is given by S times B? All right, so this is again where we're starting to interpret what these things actually tell us. Each row of SB, so S times B, gives the sum of the rows in S. So the sum of each row. This means it's the total sightings made by each ranger. So it's forgetting about the specific animals but it's telling us the total number of sightings that each ranger made. So if you look at Aaron, he saw 27 cats, 9 dogs, 34 foxes, and 59 rabbits. You add all that together, you get 129. So that's all that this matrix multiplication is doing. It's telling us the total number of animals that each ranger spotted. C says evaluate A times S. All right, so if we set that up, it'll look like this. Remember, make sure that your matrix multiplication is defined. So here we have a 1 by 3 and a 3 by 4. So we're going to be given a 1 by 4 matrix. We add that up. Here we go. It looks like this. So similar idea to the first one, except this time we've added up every column. So you notice that 27, 18, and 35 have been added together, then the 9, 15, 6, etc. So what information is given by A times S, you can probably guess. Because it's the sum of all the columns, it gives us the sum of the sightings of each type of animal. So across the whole month, Aaron, Barra, and Chloe saw a total of 80 cats, 30 dogs, 90 foxes, and 177 rabbits. Make sure that's written down before moving on to the next slide. And lastly, for this section, communications and connections. So most of the time when we do these questions in context, it's looking at social connections between people, particularly social networks. So make sure you get that first statement written down. Social networks, communication pathways, and connections can be represented and analyzed using matrix techniques. So for this example, the diagram shows people who follow each other on Instagram. These links are called one-step connections because there is just one direct step in making contact with the other person. So looking at the diagram here, you can see Vicky and Stephen follow each other, Stephen and Paul follow each other, Paul and Kathy, Kathy and Vicky, all right? So those are the people that follow each other. So almost everyone in this diagram follows each other, except you'll notice there's no connection between Vicky and Paul, telling us that they don't have any contact with each other. All right, so A says construct a matrix N to represent these connections. So I'll show you what this matrix will look like and tell you how exactly we get it. All right, so matrix N will look like this. On the sides of the matrix, you can see V, S, K, and P. These represent the people. So V means Vicky, S means Stephen, K means Kathy, P means Paul. So whenever you get these diagrams, however many people or whatever you've got in them, in this case we've got 4, that'll give you the dimensions of your matrix. And it'll always be a square matrix. So if we were doing a question like this with 6 people, it would be a 6 by 6 matrix. Or if it was with 3 people, it would be a 3 by 3. But because we're doing it with 4, we get a 4 by 4 matrix. Now, the numbers within the matrix you can see are all 0 and 1. Now, those numbers represent whether that person has a connection to another person. So if you look in the top left-hand corner, you'll see 0. So that shows the connection between Vicky and Vicky. Vicky doesn't follow herself on Instagram. There's no connection there, so it's a 0. However, if you look between the V and the S, you'll notice that there's a 1. That is because there's a connection between Vicky and Stephen. They can make direct contact with each other, or in this case, they follow each other on Instagram. So as another example, you've got a 1 between S and P, Stephen and Paul. They follow each other on Instagram. But there's a 0 between V and P because Vicky and Paul do not follow each other on Instagram. So if we look at question B, what information is given by the sum of a row or column? Well, the sum of a column or row gives the total number of people that a given person can communicate with. And in the context of this problem, it's the total number of people that they follow on Instagram. So if you look at for V, you add up either the row or the column, you get the same number. So 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0 equals 2, meaning that Vicky has direct contact with 2 people, in this case Stephen and Kathy. If you were to add up the S row or column for Stephen, you'd get 3, because he has 3 followers and follows 3 people on Instagram. Now with C, calculate N squared. So that's where you take matrix N and you multiply it by itself. So it's quite a large problem. I'm not going to write out the full working out, but you would need to do run and dive quite a number of times to get this answer. If you do that, it'll come out looking like this. Now, n squared is a bit of a trickier concept. N squared essentially refers to the number of two-step connections or two-step communications between people. So our answer here says n squared gives the number of two-step communications between people. Namely, how many ways one person can communicate with someone via another person. What that means is, it shows us the number of ways, if we're looking at our diagram, that each person can get to other people within the diagram if they follow two lines instead of one. So Vicky went straight to Steve because that was a one-step connection. But now Vicky can also connect to Paul via a two-step connection. So it can go from Vicky to Stephen to Paul. It can also go from Vicky to Kathy to Paul. So now if we look at our n squared matrix, we'll see that V and P is a 2. That's because there are two ways to get from Vicky to Paul following two-step connection. If you look at S to S, Stephen back to Stephen, there are three ways because he can go Stephen, Kathy back to Stephen, Stephen, Paul back to Stephen, Stephen, Vicky back to Stephen. He's following the exact same, just going back the other way. So this is what we call a two-step communication. If that still doesn't make sense to you, make sure you have a look at your textbook or have a look at any website that gives further explanation on this. So now with that information, what you can do is go away and complete the exercises 5F and 5G. Both of them are questions 1, 2, 3, and 5. Thanks, guys.